like I want to pursue weight loss right now. And I think that I just love the analogy of like using like similar to even what Billy says of like it's never too late to start investing, but like your dollars have more potential if you start investing early.
Yeah.
And in the same way, like the faster you really start to angle yourself towards, muscle building and muscle retention, I think just in the long run, life becomes so much easier. And that's basically the idea behind it.
Okay. Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, that makes sense. My old boss posted something like saying that same thing, and I think it's so true, man. Like we get those people that are like in their 70s and they're like starting, and it's like, okay, we can help you, but like, oh fuck, here we go.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Let me pin. All right, pin you too. All right, cool. Let me close this door and then we'll start up.
Yep.
All right. And 3, 2, 1. Yo, what's up, everybody? We are back again here with the Live, Love, Lift podcast. I'm your host and the owner of Aion Training, Marcus, joined by my co-host here, Sean. What's up, Sean?
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Sean, I'm sure the people that actually watch this podcast, they'll be a bit sad, man. You had a different background. You had me excited for a second. We're back
I
to
know.
save the redwoods.
I had to go back to all reliable. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's a good life lesson and one I need to learn today on this Zoom.
I respect it, man. I respect it. So, yeah, but I want to jump into everything. We won't do my little banter for too long, but yeah,
Yeah.
you brought it up, so I'll let you kind of introduce it, the main focus of today, and what we kind of want to dive into.
Yeah, I think that in fitness, and I think with any complex topic or idea, I always go by the KISS rule: keep it simple and stupid. And I think within that, one of the things I love, one of the mentors and kind of idols in my life, Mr. Daniel John, he uses a lot of analogy, and I think analogy is so good because especially when you're starting into something that's new or alien or kind of confusing, if you can attach that to another thing in your life that's like, I get that, all of a sudden you just demystify. We were talking the other day about, dealing with lawyers and other stuff like that and how they just kind of, obscure the language. And I think the more transparency you have, the kinder the situation is to somebody starting up and even those who have been in it for a while. So, yeah, I think today the topic and the analogy that I really love is thinking about your health and muscle growth or retention specifically as kind of like a 401k. And I think that, again, we hear so much about the importance of saving and like building a base for retirement in terms of like financial capital. And I feel like we rarely, if maybe ever, hear about that in terms of health and fitness, And in my mind, and stop me if you disagree, I think they're exactly the same. Like literally, the only difference is dollars to muscular tissue, healthy tissue, but the 1-to-1 ratio is exactly the same. And I think we had the great honor and pleasure, which is one of the things I love about working for Aion, of having a financial coach, Mr. Billy, come in and talk to us a little bit about how through your life, your dollar has more potential in your youth, right? I think it's something like, what is it? Every dollar you spend has $88 in, future retirement potential, something like that. I'm misquoting it, but
Yeah, man.
that's the idea. And I think that, within health and fitness, the same idea applies, the younger and kind of earlier that you start to prioritize muscle building and muscle retention, just like that 401k, it's going to pay off dividends. Now, I think the only difference, and maybe it's not too much of a difference, is that, with muscle and fitness and health, like you have to maintain it. Like you can't just kind of passively be like, I'm going to let it sit in an account. Like you have to do the steps to kind of maintain it. But at the same time, like if we're looking to what, dollars can do in terms of a better life post-retirement and, spending a life in service to the idea of like, when I retire, I want to be with my grandkids or travel the world. I think that money is oftentimes kind of an overblown component of that because we've had clients who have retired and they have all the money in the bank, but can I take a trip to Peru if I can't even sit on the flight or help myself put luggage on a bag or do these incredible things?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that was the topic today is just like framing your health and fitness in the same light and with the same importance that you do with these other big things that everybody tells you have to do it or you're not where you're supposed to be, you know?
Yeah, man. I think it's such a good comparison, right? On multiple levels because at least one consult I get, and probably every month I get like 2 to 3 consults, which are someone that's in their 60s, in their 70s, they're retired, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I went to Europe, I went on this vacation, and everyone had to wait for me, or I
Yep.
wasn't able to fully enjoy it, or I'm afraid to travel or to do this thing because I don't want to be that person, right?" And I think that's such a big thing of, hey, like the yes, it's always good that you're working on it, but the earlier that you can start to put those deposits away,
Yep.
the better. And the other part too is, it is really like even with the 401k, Roth, whatever it is, you've got to put some away towards it every time, and that doesn't mean that, every month you got to stack away 10K, it's like to max it out. It's,
Right.
hey, consistent, nothing crazy, put it away. And I think it's the same with fitness, man. Like the goal of this isn't for you to become some bodybuilder, especially not with our members. It's not for them
Yeah.
to become some bodybuilder. It's for them to feel good in their skin and their clothes, to be able to enjoy the things they love and like make them feel fully expressed in life, and just to be able to enjoy life. And a lot of that really is, hey, like I show up, I do my monthly deposits, right? Like my 8 to 12 workouts a month.
Yeah.
What allows me to keep doing these things. And if I start to take that money out or not do those deposits,
Right.
I no longer can enjoy the fruits of this other side. So I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll say too, if you're listening to this, and I think that oftentimes this can be an issue. Like you're thinking, like, well, I haven't put that money away. Like I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. Like I think if you talk to any financial planner or advisor, the first thing they say is like, starting now is better than starting never. And like just because you might have to work maybe a little bit harder at the outset, maybe put a little bit more away. It's still like money saved is money saved, right? And I think that's another really good point within this, which is the idea is to put something down today to make tomorrow a better space and a better future. And I think that when you look at it like that, we talk about this a lot. I think we've talked about it on the podcast, but especially with clients, it's like looking at the macro goal, right? Looking at the bird's eye view of like what is today in service of tomorrow. And I think that's where you can really just kind of break down the walls of whether it's finance, fitness, reading, anything. Like you doing it today never is going to be motivating. It's like you're always not going to want to do it. But when you have that idea of like, okay, my activity today leads to this result down my life and down the line, all of a sudden starting becomes easier, maintaining becomes easier. Well, maybe not easier, but you have more of a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And on those hard days, it's easier for you to go, well, I don't want to do it today, but I got to at least put $1 in the piggy bank, right? Because to your point, $10,000 or $1, you're still banking and saving for the future.
Yeah, and I think like that point you put there of like the macro level, I think that's a huge part, right? Because if we look at it, like a lot of our and it's funny, a lot of our members that struggle with long-term weight loss, if that's their goal the most, are the ones whose only goal is weight loss,
Lose
right?
weight. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, it's such a funny thing, and as coaches, like we're supportive and we're there and we allow people to learn their own like pieces. But I think it's really big to have something that's bigger on that macro level because it's, we talk to our members that are like, hey, I want to be able to be there for my kids. I want to be able to be mobile. I saw how my parents were when they got older. I don't want to, have that, to quote, not to say my own, that burden on my own children. And I think that's the type of thing that carries a lot of weight where it's like, hey, if that's what it is, if that is this big macro goal that you're really working towards in the long term, that's going to be what you need to carry you. What we see a lot if someone doesn't have one of those that really speaks to them, and it's totally okay if you don't. Maybe this podcast is kind of allows you to connect with that. But what we'll see a lot of times is that, the pain is what causes the micro goal. And once some of that pain, the pain of not feeling good in your clothes, emotional pain, whatever it is, once some of that pain subsides, we can sometimes get in this roller coaster of just like
Yeah. Yeah.
pain goes up, I want to do something. Pain goes up, I want to do something. And I think that was a really good point that you made there, to have that bigger macro goal as well.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I think, and just to wrap up the analogy, the last part about good financial planning is having a financial advisor that you trust. And I think, again, in fitness, it's the same thing. There's a lot of parallels. It's funny. Just like, you wouldn't want to put your money into a Ponzi scheme. Like, in fitness, I think we can both agree there's a lot of Ponzi schemes. I
That's
think
really too.
finding people that you trust, whether that's us or whether that's somebody else, finding somebody that you trust and that you can really lean on to help you make the proper long-term goals and then execute the follow through is the last piece of that important puzzle, you know?
Yeah, I think that's because that's a good point too. Because we get a lot of clients that are really successful in what they do, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes like being uncomfortable or not great at something can feel very like it can make it feel very uneasy, And I think
Yeah.
it is important to have like someone to guide you through that. Like for me, when I signed up with Billy, like my finance coach 4 years ago now, 3, 4 years ago, whatever it was, like at that point, is because I didn't know shit, right? Like imagine first day exercising, like I didn't know what a kettlebell was, right? Like I
Yeah.
didn't know what a P&L was, any of that stuff. And now what it's become is, hey, like I'm just hiring this dude to have a little feedback and for him to make sure that I do the thing that I want to do. Right? Like
Yeah.
that is Billy's whole goal in my life is to make sure that I show up and I do the things consistently every week that I want to do. And I think that's what a lot of our members like, the amount of people that are like, hey man, like I just pay you all so I have to show up and do this thing. And I'm like, I respect it. So yeah. I guess this was our loose fitness bros talk fight. Now I'm just playing.
Oh God, please no. Um, we promise we'll never be that. But but yeah, no, I think again, it's just like when you dive into something complex, it just helps so much to have a simple analogy that you can relate to. And I think again, as we talked about, just to sum it up, like a dollar saved is, what I mean, a dollar saved, whether that's, the maximum allowance you can put in a week, or even if that's the simple action of just showing up every day. Cause what is it? $1 a day adds up to X amount a month. And then that starts to just, exaggerate and expand. And I think that's the best way to think about it. Find somebody you trust and then invest the dang money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Put the money down. If it's important to you, put some skin in the game, put the money down and invest, whether that is financially speaking in a coach or whether that's just time and commitment and carving out blocks for yourself, because both of them have equal value.
exactly. Especially for people that may not be able to afford it. Like time is
Yeah.
also an investment that is very important in this whole process.
Right.
So that totally makes sense. Yeah, so I guess to wrap it up on there, the bigger things are, that first piece, like you said, of hey, the earlier that you can get started on getting towards that macro goal, the better, right? Like, yes, there is a quote that I love, like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time was today. And I
Yeah.
think that still stands. Like we have a lot of people that are in their 70s and they start and they live life a lot better now, 3, 4 years later. But at
Yeah.
that same time, if they could have gone back 20 years, they probably would have told themselves, hey, like we should have started this thing now, right? So
Yeah.
if you are kind of in the 40s, 50s, and you're like, I've got time, hopefully you do. But also like, hey, just start with something. Even if it's just like walking consistently right now, I
Yeah.
think putting some deposit in is big. And then the second one on there that you said was just connected to that bigger macro goal, right? Like everyone you don't need to have one, but if you really want to take your fitness journey to the next level, just really sit back and think about, yes, today my goal is to lose 10 pounds by this wedding in June, but 10 years from now, what do I want this health and fitness thing to look like for me? And let
Yeah.
that thing kind of guide you. So, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, like always, this has been a great talk. And, if anybody's listening to this, we kind of resounded with you or struck a chord, we'd love to see you. Come on down. If you want to see me in my natural habitat, which, well, I guess this is my natural habitat, but my work habitat, not the redwood trees, we'd love to see you, and we'd love to talk to you about your financial planning.
No, my peeps. Well, I hope you all have a great week. We will see you again soon. And like you said, if you are a member, we will see you soon. We actually love hearing when the members talk to us about the podcast. So if you are watching it, you're like, oh, that thing he said was great, or oh man, blah blah, whatever else. Feel free to always share that with us. If you're not currently a member and you're like, you know what, I like that dude's background. Yeah, just click the link down in the bio. There should be a link for a free week, and you can come see if we'd be a good fit. So see you all next week.
Cool.